Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So this is the first video that I'm be posting on my channel. In this video I will be explaining the chapter political parties. It's a chapter 6 of the class 10th. Now I will try my best to explain this chapter properly in the shortest time possible and also covering each and every detail. So let's get started. So, the topics that we will be covering in this chapter are going to be first, of course, we will be talking about the introduction. I'm going to be giving you a little bit of introduction on this chapter. Then, I will be talking about what are political parties, what is their need, what are their functions, and we will be also talking about the different party systems, a comparative analysis between two party and multi party system, and we will be also talking about national parties, regional parties, challenges to political parties, and how these political parties can be reformed. And at the end, we will be conclude this chapter. Now, let's talk about the introduction. So basically, one of the most visible institutions in a democracy is basically we are considered to be the political parties. Now, political parties are, we can say, it's pretty popular because if you go to any part of the country and you talk to the less educated citizens, you would realize that they do not know anything about the constitution or the how the government functions or anything related to the judicial structure or the government, how does the fed how does our federal structure work, but they definitely know something about the political parties. Now, this something cannot always be positive, and most of the time it is negative because people are very critical of their political parties. According to them, anything wrong that happens in their political life or that happens in the democracy is because of these political parties. And the important statement that needs to be highlighted here is this statement, which is about 100 years ago, there were few countries of the world that had any political party. Now there are few that do not have political parties. Now, this statement can be asked in a one mark question, so you can underline the statement. Now let's move on. Now, what are political parties? Now, political parties is basically a group of people, a group of citizens who come together to contest elections, and if they manage to win, to they hold power to control, or you can say they hold power in the government. So, how are they supposed to win? So, to win, they agree on some policies and programs for the society with a view to promote collective good. So, this statement, with a view to promote collective good, I don't think it is true though, but let's just focus on what the text in the book. So, they agree on some policies and programs for the society and they want to basically promote collective good. Now, these parties, they reflect fundamental political divisions in a society. And parties are basically a part of the society and they of course involve partisanship. Now, partisanship basically is uh, something on which is basically before understanding what is partisanship, we should know what is a partisan. Now, partisan is a person who is strongly committed to a party and who believes that all the decisions that have that the party has taken or that has been taken by the party are correct, and partisan is a person who does or who is involved in partisanship, because partisanship is something, basically a tendency to take a side and to not provide a balanced view on a topic, or on a topic or a issue. So, partisan is someone who does partisanship. Partisan is a person who is committed to a party, and of course, if you're committed to a party, according to that person, whatever decision that the party has taken is, of course, good, is for the collective good, and is correct. So, the person will not provide a balanced view on the issue. Now, partisan is not always a member of a particular party, political party. It can also be a citizen, a citizen of of our country, who thinks that according to whom the decision taken by some party, some ex party, is correct and is for collective good. It might, and the person, it might or might not be for the collective good, but according to the person it is, and he will basically take the side of that party and say that that party is best, which is something we notice in our day-to-day lives now. So therefore we can say that party is known by what it stands for and what policies it supports and whose interest it upholds. So 3 points: a party is known by what it stands for, policies it supports, and whose interest it upholds. So these 3 points are there. Now, political party has three components: leaders, active members, and followers. Now, leaders is of course who lead the party. Second, active members who of course do the actively participate in the party. Maybe the people who are basically the one who do the promotion in elections, and followers are the people who follow a particular party. Now we will be talking about the necessity of political parties. Now, what will happen if there are no more political parties in a democracy? For example, let's take an example that in the future there will be no political parties. There will be only there will be only individual candidates who stand in elections. Now, in this case, when the individual candidates contest elections, first thing, they will not be able to make any promises to the people about any major policy changes, because they do not know who will form the who will be holding the other office, and the government might be formed, but the utility will be uncertain. The smooth functioning will be not there, and the elected representatives will only work for their constituency, and they will do try to focus for the development in their locality, and no one will take the responsibility for how the country will function. Now, for example, the panchayat in states. Now, parties do not contest elections in panchayats, but the village usually gets split into parts, and from each faction, actually one faction needs part, and each panel and each of these faction puts up a panel of its candidates, and that's why political parties are there, because if they will be not there, we will not be having a smooth functioning of the country. Every representative will be accountable for their constituency, and no one will take responsibility for the collective good of the country. Next point is that political parties, basically they agree on policies and programs so that they can promote collective good, and they also influence people how and why their policy is better. And once they win the popular support through elections, they implement these policies and they reflect the fundamental division in society. Now, these absence, if the political parties would not be there, the interest of the people would not reach the parliament, and some sections would be uh, lagging, and they won't get all the welfare measures and all that, because when there are political parties during elections, when these political parties do जब अपना चुनाव प्रचार करते हैं political parties, they travel to various slum areas, and the demands of the people, it is only during that time the demands of the smaller sections or the weaker sections of the society is heard by the political party workers. Now, if these parties will not be there and individual candidates will be contesting, they might not be able to go to the weaker sections of the society, and this will and due to this, the interest of these weaker section people will not reach the parliament, and therefore some people would remain behind the mainstream, and they will not get the welfare measures that the government has designed for them. Now, now if there will be no political party, every candidate would be independent, right? So the current strength of the Lok Sabha is 543. For example, there is a policy that is introduced, and none of the 543 members think alike on the particular issue. They think that no, and some has some other view on the issue, some has some other. So no one is basically coming to a unanimous decision is not possible in that case, and it will create a total chaos, because the independent candidate would always be interested in the needs of his constituency, and he will not think about the interest of the nation or about the larger public. He will only think about what his constituency is needing and needs, and he or she will not focus about the interest of the nation. And basically a political party is basically necessary to bring diverse people on a common platform, so bigger issues can be taken care of. If there will be political parties, it will lead to a unanimous decision, and if there will be 543 normal individual candidates, they will not be able to come alike or think alike on a particular issue, or they would not be able to come on a unanimous decision. So now, the democracy that is being practiced all over the world, it is basically the representative democracy. Now, we always say that if we are a representative democracy. What is representative democracy means? Because people cannot go to the parliament, or they cannot go to the ministers directly and tell them, or they cannot go to the prime minister directly and tell them we are facing this problem. They need, and sometimes these problems can be solved at a minor level, so these political parties help solving these problems at a minor level. In this representative democracy system, governance is basically done through people's representative, because people, whenever there are elections, the people convey their demands to the political parties, and of course the political parties fulfill their demands. And of course, it is impossible for every citizen to directly participate in governance. Everyone cannot just, we started last year also that we cannot all sit together and decide on policies and issues, because first thing, it will be very time consuming. Everyone is not having the knowledge and the source to understand what they, and people do not know what's best for them. So these political parties, they are needed because of the need of representative democracy. Now what we will be talking about, only we have studied about the need. Why do we need? We need them for, if we talk in a general conscience, we need them for the smooth functioning of the government, or for the smooth and for the collective good of the people. Now, what are the functions of political parties? Now, political parties, of course, contest elections. We know that political parties, they contest elections, they win, sometimes they lose, sometimes some. So basically, what if we talk about the function of political parties, their main first function would be to contest elections. Now, in most of the democracy, Now, what happens that the political parties basically they put up or they decide on a few candidates, and these candidates fight the not fight, they basically contest the elections. Now, parties select their candidates in different ways. For example, in USA, the members and supporters of the parties choose the candidates. But in India, now more and more countries are of course following this. But in India, top party leader choose which candidate will be contesting the elections. किसको election contest करने का ticket मिलेगा. So this decision is taken by top party leaders in India, whereas in USA it is taken by members. It is taken by members and supporters. Now, parties have put forward different policies and programs, and voters choose from them. Now, of course, when the parties are trying to win elections, they of course need to they need to convince the voters to vote for them, and for this, they basically provide, they basically put forward some policies and programs so that the voters can choose which policy will be better for them in the long run. Now, everyone has different opinions for what type of policy should be suitable for the society, but of course the government cannot work on such a variety of views, because we must have studied in geography that for sometimes what is development for one person might not be development for the other person. For example, for the richer for example, for some people building of industries would be good because it will provide employment to them, but it is always not good because it will also cause a lot of pollution. Now, for some people, they would say that the industries and these factories should be put up or should be shifted outside the city. Now, this can be beneficial for the people because they will be not they are not supposed to inhale the polluted air, but for the factory workers it will become very difficult for them to go to move, move outside the city, go to the factory work, and then they will be facing a lot of problems. They will not be having any facility there. So the government cannot do manage both the things at the same time. They cannot because in India everyone has different views, opinions, and variety of views and opinions are there on what policy will be better for the society. So government cannot handle these variety of views. So what the government does is that basically in a democracy a large number of similar opinions need to be grouped together to provide direction in which policies can be formulated by the government. Now, what this means basically is that एक democracy में जो similar opinions होते हैं, जिन लोगों की similar opinions होते हैं, they need to be grouped together so that it gives a direction in which the policies can be followed, or in which the policies can be implemented in the country or by the government. Now, this is what these parties do. What they do is that they reduce these vast opinions or these vast uh, multitude of opinions into basic positions which it supports, and basically the government bases its policies on the line taken by the ruling party. Now, next, parties play a decisive role in making laws for a country. Now, what happens that when a law is कहते हैं ना bill pass होने से पहले it is discussed in basically debated in the legislature. So what happens that since most of the members belong to a party, they of course go into the direction of party leadership, and they of course do not think about their own personal opinion. They just think that according to the party, this is better. Party के majority लोग are saying that this policy is good, so this policy is good in the legislature when these laws are debated and passed. So when these laws are debated in the parliament, now in the parliament, if the of course the ruling party is having the most number of members, so what happens is most number of members go in the direction of the party, and they do not present their own viewpoint. They do not say that maybe we can do this change in the policy, maybe this policy is not would not work for the people. They just go in the direction of party's leadership. Now, parties form and run governments. Now, basically, the big decisions are taken by political executives that come from political parties. These political parties are basically the leaders, political party leaders. These parties, of course, form the government and then they run the government. So, what does the party do? They recruit leaders, they train them, they make and then they make their ministers to so that they can run the government in whichever way the party wants them to run it. So what they do, they recruit them, train them, and then make them minister to run the government the way the party wants. Now, what happens to the party that loses the elections? So we know that party that loses the elections form the opposition party. Or we can say the party that gets the second most highest no sorry the second highest number of votes plays the role of opposition party. Now the opposition party, the job of the opposition party is basically to criticize the government for the failure or if they have introduced any wrong policies, and basically their job is to criticize the government, and they also basically uh, mobilize this opposition. What happens now that they uh, mobilize their opinion and try to convince people that whatever party the people has chosen is not the right one for them and is not taking decisions for their good, for their welfare. Now, parties they also shape public opinion. Now, how do they shape public opinion? We studied in the last slide that parties, the opposition party, mobilize their views. So, this mobilizing is basically how they shape the public opinion. Whenever there is an issue, they raise it, they highlight it, and they basically the parties have lakhs of members and activists which are spread all over the country, and many of the pressure groups are basically the extensions of these political parties among different sections of society. And what they do is that they launch movements for the resolution of problems faced by people, and often opinions in the society crystallize on the lines party take. Basically, whatever decision the party takes, and people in the society form their opinions on the based on that basis. Now, parties provide access to government machinery and welfare schemes implemented by governments. Now, if you want to, if you are an ordinary citizen, you can approach the local leader easier. It will be easier for you to approach the local leader than a government officer because it is the duty of these local leaders to fulfill your demands, because you feel closer to the parties, and even if you don't trust them you feel you feel closer to them, and of course they need to be responsive to your needs and demands. Otherwise you will not be choosing them in the next elections, they will be not getting their majority, right? Now we have the party system. Now we have basically three types of party system: one party system, two party system, and multi party system. What is one party system? Now, one party system is a system in which only one party is allowed to control and run the government, and this is called one party system. For example, in China we have the Communist Party. Now, elections are contested, but all the candidates that basically stand in the elections are from the Communist Party. So whoever candidate, whichever candidate you choose, they are from the Communist Party. So whatever decision is taken, at the end the Communist Party is ruling. Now, the next is the two-party system. Now, basically, two-party system, the government is basically shared between two main parties. Now, in two-party system, basically, it's not that there are only two parties present. There are more than two parties. More parties also contest elections, but only there are two main parties who are basically are able to get the majority, and no one other than these two parties gets the majority or is able to form government. For example, the United States of America and United Kingdom. They are basically the examples of two-party system. Now comes multi-party system. Now multi-party system is something we are having in India. Now multi-party system is a system in which two or more parties can compete for power, and actually several parties compete for power, and more than two parties have a chance of winning the elections, and this is basically what we call a multi-party system. And of course, multi-party system offers a lot of choices to the voters because they can choose whoever they want, and they can get their demands fulfilled easily. Now we will be having the comparison between two-party and multi-party system. Now two-party system is basically a system in which there are two parties which have the majority chances of winning the elections. So basically it provides the voters a simple choice and it has a stable governance. But they are not very flexible and they do not have more set of opinions on any issue. So for example, we have UK and USA. Similarly, for multi-party system, it provides the voters many choices, but it is not stable. So multi-party system is actually more responsive for in the public opinion. For example, we have India. Now we will be talking about national party. Now national party is something that exists, function and operate throughout India. Now, to be recognized as a national party, you need at least 6% valid votes at last general elections or assembly elections in 4 states, or party that secures at least 6% of total votes in Lok Sabha or assembly elections in 4 states and win at least 4 seats in the Lok Sabha is recognized as a national party. Now, similarly, a regional party is basically which originates in a particular region and is basically working for a region. It is known as a regional political party. It needs to secure at least 6% of the total votes in an election to the Legislative Assembly and win at least 2 seats. Now they operate at regional level. For example, Mukti Morcha, Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, Akali Dal, and a party that secures 6% of total votes in election to the Legislative Assembly of a state and wins at least 2 seats is recognized as a state party or regional party. Now, what are the challenges to a political party? First is lack of internal democracy. Now, what happens that when there is a party, the political party, the concentration of power is with the few leaders at the top, and they do not hold organizational meetings or do not conduct internal elections, and the ordinary members do not get to know what is happening inside the party and do not have the say in the decisions that are taken, and therefore the major the uh, leaders, they make all the decisions in the name of the party, but the all the members, ordinary members, do not get a say in this decision. Now these leaders exercise a lot of power in the party, and those who disagree with them, they are removed from the party and they are not allowed to continue in the party. And for the it is important that the party member is respecting the leader rather than the party principles and policies. Now dynastic succession, basically the political parties do not practice any transparent procedure for their functioning. So it is very few cases we see that an ordinary workers becomes the top worker of a party, because the leaders who are in the top level, they give unfair advantage to favor the people of their family or who are they close, and the top positions are always controlled by the members of one family, and this is actually unfair for the members of the party who actually work for it. And this is also good bad for democracy, because people do not get an adequate support, experience of or support to actually come to know which candidate is better. And it is present in all over the world. Now, money and muscle power, basically, parties basically are only focused towards winning elections. So they use shortcuts to win these elections. Now they nominate, so they basically select those candidates who have lot of money, and rich people and company who give parties fund to these parties. Basically, they have the influence on the decisions of the party, and they even support, sometimes the party support criminals so that they can win elections, because they will provide them with a lot of money. So people are worried about the because so the democrats of the world are worried about the increasing role of rich and big companies in democratic politics. Now, meaningful choice. Now, parties nowadays are very, the ideologies of the parties are pretty similar, because because if you want to give a meaningful choice to the people, the party should be different from one another, and most of the ideological differences are not there between parties. For example, Labour Party and Conservative Party in Britain, there is no difference between them. They agree on fundamental aspects but only differ on details on how policies are to be framed and implemented. So basically, they just are. Uh, they agree on fundamental aspects, but how policies should be framed, implemented, on those details they disagree. So basically, their ideologies are same. And similarly, in our country, all the major parties and their differences among them is not really present. And the people who really want different policies, they don't have any option. And because, and sometimes they cannot even select different leaders, because same set of leaders sometimes keep changing their parties or moving to other parties. Now how can parties be reformed? Now the constitution was actually amended to prevent these elected MLAs and MPs from changing their party, because what happened that many elected representatives were indulging in defection to become ministers or for cash rewards. Now, according to the law, if any MLA or MP change the party, he will lose the seat in their legislature, and this has actually helped bring that defection down, and this has made dissent even more difficult. Now MLA and MPs have to accept whatever the party leaders decide for them. The Supreme Court passed in order to actually reduce the influence of money and criminals. Now it is actually compulsory for every candidate to file an affidavit. Affidavit is basically giving details of his property, criminal cases pending against him, and any and basic information related to his life, so that the people know who they are casting vote for. And actually it is very good for the people, as they will come to know who is basically the criminal or something. They should know who they are voting for, but sometimes this system is not having any checks, so no one comes to know if the information is true or not. But it has definitely led to the decline in the influence of money and muscle power that we said. Now, Election Commission has also passed an order that political parties had to hold their organizational elections, and they need to file their income tax returns. Now, sometimes people do, sometimes party do it properly, but sometimes for them it is formality, and it has not really led to many unusual difference. Now, a law should be made to regulate the internal affairs of political parties, Now, political parties should always, it should be compulsory for them to maintain a register and to follow the constitution, to have an independent authority, to basically have a judge or to judge in case अगर कोई लड़ाई हो जाती है पार्टी में, and to open elections. There should be elections conducted for higher posts, so that the person who is the top leader should not always be the top leader. Other leaders could also get the chance to work. Next is, party should be basically give a minimum, actually it should be made mandatory to give one third of their seats to women candidates, one third of tickets, and there should be quota also for making for women to give the decision making body of the party. There should be state funding of elections. Government should give party money, state funding. इलेक्शन की जो चुनाव प्रचार होता है उसके लिए गवर्नमेंट शुड गिव स्टेट फंडिंग, so that they can parties can do their election expenses, and this can be given by petrol, paper, telephone, or maybe on the basis of cash the votes have the party has secured in last elections. Now, these have not been accepted by political parties, and if they are accepted, I'm sure they will lead to some improvement. But there is some legal solutions to these problems. Over regulation of political parties can also be not very good. They would force all the parties, of course this would force the parties to find ways to cheat, and of course political parties will not agree to pass a law that they are not like. And there are two other ways. First, people can put pressure, people can start doing petitions, publicity, agitations, and ordinary citizens should do this, and actually media can be very helpful. And if political parties should feel that they would lose public support, that if they will not take seriously reforms, and political parties who should can improve, if those who want to join these political parties, the actually the quality of democracy depends on the people of participation. Now, it is very difficult to reform the politics if ordinary citizens will not take part in it and just criticize sitting outside. So the problem of bad politics can also be solved by better politics. So thank you for watching this video. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel.